Good evening, College Football Nation, and welcome to the very first edition of the Final Whistle from yours truly, Jackson Johnson, and the host of Sports Talk with Austin, Austin Williams. I gotta say, good buddy, we had a wild week 0, didn't we?
Oh, yes, from start to finish. Jackson, it's one of them things where you don't expect much from week 0. A lot of the favorites should cover and win, but this Jackson delivered and then some. We saw upsets, we saw comebacks, we saw teams survive tonight. Man, oh man, it delivered.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, anytime we have a sloppy slate or a slate looks pretty awful, that means upsets are coming. And for some of you that watch like Game of Thrones, you know how you hear the term winter is coming? Well,
hmm
anytime we see a sloppy slate, upsets are coming. So always keep an eye
hmm
on that.
Yes. Just like Jackson, I couldn't agree more. This slate on paper didn't look that good. But it is college football, so for us sickos, we're gonna watch it. We're gonna
Oh
spend
yeah.
our Saturday watching it. But
Well, we'll say though, I mean, I'll go as far as even stay up late till 4 a.m. if I have to. Because it's what you do with college football.
I hope not. Colorado, if you get put on at 10:30 again, win the game you're supposed to.
Well, let's get this show on the road as we started off with Montana State, New Mexico. You did warn me about Montana State, but the funny thing was, and this is something we don't see, an FCS team being favored by 11.5. But the thing that I noticed myself also was this was the start of the Bronco Mendenhall era, and
Mhm.
unfortunately, it ended poorly. But that doesn't mean it's going to go poorly. It's just oh, bad day. It happens. What was your take from this game, man?
So, I watched this entire game from start to finish. And I went into this game thinking, okay, this has the potential to be a good sleeper game, something to watch. And I'm sitting here watching this and I'm thinking, New Mexico State's up 31-14. I'm thinking to myself, did I make a mistake picking Montana State in an upset? And as we found out, Jackson, as we go through the theme of the night, there was a lot of mistakes in this game. New Mexico, New Mexico, Jackson, they dropped a lot of passes that could have been touchdowns. They had a missed field goal, a lot of miscues. But Montana State, with their resilience and able to hang around, and were able to go on the last game-winning drive, punch it in at the end. I think, like you say, Jackson, all the time, sometimes you can't always judge a team off of week 0 performance. And I ain't ready to ready to say, oh, Bronco Mendenhall was a bad hire. I'm not ready to do any of that just yet. But I will say, if he plans on taking this team to a bowl game, they need to clean up these mistakes. Because when you play the better opponents, they're not going to allow you to make those mistakes.
True. But even though it was a sloppy day for New Mexico, we've seen some good coaches have like a bad first game in their first year with their new teams. I know that Mike Leach's tenure at Washington State didn't exactly start off swimmingly, but still, though, it worked out just fine. Now, I don't really think we could realistically expect New Mexico State to win a Mount West title. That's not going to happen. But I do think Bronco Mendenhall is going to get that team to plenty of bowl games. But I just
Mm-hmm.
don't think the first year is going to end in a bowl game.
And Jackson, and I don't want this to be taken out of context either, Montana State's is a really, really good FCS team, too. And it's not like New Mexico State should be ashamed to lose this game, in my opinion, because you lost to a really good FCS team. And their head coach, Brent Vegan, or however you say his last name, he might be getting a few calls next offseason for a head coaching job if he keeps this up. Now, whether he takes it or not, I don't know. Because Jackson, you even said in our show that we recorded on Wednesday night, you were wondering if Brent Vegan would get any calls from a Power 4 school or Power 5, however you like to frame it.
Group of 5.
This Jackson, Jackson, a win like this could be a stepping stone for teams that could be in a market for a head coach next year. Look at that and say, hey, look what he's doing with this smaller school. Imagine if he's in a Power 4, Power 5 program with some NIL money and some potential for 4 and 5 star players. He could get us to a bowl game.
Well, and the thing is also is from 2009, 2013, I know that he was the offensive coordinator for those first national title teams at North Dakota State for the FCS. And I gotta say, he did a tremendous job over there. And he did work for Craig Bowl at North Dakota State from 2003 to 2013. So he was at North Dakota State quite a long time prior to Craig Bowl being there. He even went to school there and played there. But then when Craig Bowl left for Wyoming, guess who went with him? Brent Vegan. He was the OC 2014 to 2016, and even got promoted to assistant head coach for the next 4 years. Then Montana State calls him be the head coach. So I would not be surprised if he can get some tremendous coaching offers at higher places, like someplace in the Power 4, most likely like lower Power 4, but I would say like the most likely being would be a Group of 5 school. And honestly, I hope the Group of 5 schools are calling him because they really should call him. And especially if we see Montana State winning an FCS national title, because that's something I would really love to see. But all that aside, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Jackson.
Well, I was going to say about the game itself, that was a tremendous comeback by the Bobcats. And you told me, like, before we got the showtime, you're like, I told you about those Bobcats. It's like, you got me there.
I have to say, Jackson, and not trying to sound braggadocious or nothing like that, it's just, you get a feeling with some of these games. Like, Jackson, it just feels like this game had that written all over it. And Jackson, like they said tonight on commentary, Montana State, Brent Vegan has built up a good team, a veteran, experienced team, gritty, knows how to win. Jackson, their quarterback, they said he had 3 different offers to go play for different schools, and he chose to stick it out at Montana State because he wanted to be a Bobcat that bad. He waited his turn.
Smart man. And we got our buddy Sean Bryant, aka Spaz, from Ducks Live at Oregon Football at the Voice of College Football, tuning into the chat. You can check him out. Right. If you want to call in, well, we can throw in a little invite. What do you say, good boy? The more the merrier.
The more the merrier. Anybody that wants to come on, go for it. Now, if you're going to talk about Oregon, we'll have to cut you off.
Nah, it's all good.
Nobody likes Oregon. No, they love Oregon.
But yeah. So we're looking at this huge comeback, and we got co-host of Ducks Live from Oregon Football, The Voice College Football, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, the one and only Spaz. How you doing tonight, man?
What's up, guys?
I'm doing all right. How you doing tonight?
So yeah, I here thought I'd jump on and say hi for a minute. Did y'all enjoy the week 0 games and watching college football finally?
Oh, absolutely. We most certainly did. It was like getting a nice appetizer while waiting for a 4-course meal.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly.
I enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting a whole lot. I kept my expectations low.
There was 3 really wild games that I did not expect. Austin, you scored the upset of the week right here with old Montana State.
Well, the funny thing about it too is, Spaz, like Jackson said, they were double-digit favorites. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, SMU had to pull out a last-minute victory as well. 27-point favorites and almost lost in Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
And old
And
Georgia Tech pulling off the miracle in Ireland.
Yeah, I will say about the SMU game. I know a lot of people are going to be making jokes about how SMU shouldn't be in a Power Four conference, but as Jackson always says, it is week 0. You can't judge one performance on an entire season. So I will say, let's see some more before we start judging.
Well, yeah, but all I can say is the ACC looks kind of weak right now.
Yes, I think it's wide open for anybody to win. I wouldn't be surprised if North Carolina somehow finds a way to win the ACC. That's how bad it might be.
I don't think North Carolina's going to win the ACC. I would say more like a North Carolina State. And if that does happen, it'll be the first time since 1979 that they've even won the ACC. That was in the Bo Ryan era.
Yeah, I still think Miami's the team to beat in the ACC. They have an easy schedule.
Well, and I want to see how they do in the games that they shouldn't win, because we know they'll probably win the games they shouldn't win. But how are they going to do in the games they shouldn't lose?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's see if Mario Cristobal takes a knee this time.
Oh, Lord.
Or gives up a 99-yard drive in the final minute.
Yeah.
Miami's never going to be able to live that down. That's going to follow them for the rest of their history, as long as we're on here.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, like Montana State made that huge comeback in the 4th quarter, and it was pretty huge. And we saw Tommy Mellott making some huge runs, and New Mexico, oh God, they were missing all kinds of field goals.
Yeah, Jackson, they had a lot of mistakes. They should have won this game pretty comfortably.
Yeah. And I noticed that Adam Jones ran for a 93-yarder. That was just huge right there. 4 minutes left in the game. Then and Scotty Humphrey made a game-winning touchdown right there. That basically put him in. So that was a fantastic finish by the Bobcats. 21 unanswered points.
Well, and the thing that I found really interesting too is that there was a play, I believe it was in the 4th quarter, maybe late 3rd. A receiver was coming across on a drag. Quarterback hits him right in the hands, and he just drops it. If he catches it and turns, he's gone. And it's 38-14 at that point, I do believe. And that game's essentially over.
Yeah. Yeah, New Mexico had their opportunities. They definitely should have won that game.
We talked about how today has not been a good day for the ACC. But we didn't talk about how today has not been a good day for the Mountain West either. Because like New Mexico blew it against Montana State, but guess who else blew it?
Nevada.
Oh, Nevada.
Mm-hmm. And Austin, you and I watched a little bit of this game before we went live. It looked like SMU was going to get upset, but then once again, cue in the Mighty Mouse music for the fourth quarter. Oh,
Now,
man.
I don't know how much of this you watched, Spaz, but did you see how Nevada was getting pressure on Preston Stone? They were pushing that offensive line. That's very concerning to me. If they can't address that, they're going to have some trouble in the ACC because there's some good D lines in the ACC.
Yeah, there is. And Nevada looked really strong for about 3.5 quarters, and then they just made some bonehead mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Fumbling the ball at the 1 yard line.
Mm-hmm. Well, and another one is the QB draw for Nevada was working really well. They were like going up the middle on SMU, running it, but then they all of a sudden, I don't know if the game pressure got to them late, but they made a couple decisions like that safety. They fumbled the kickoff. It just seems like these two games were like riddled with mistakes, like badly, like some sloppy football today.
Yeah. Yep. The underdogs definitely choked in under the pressure.
Oh, yeah. It was a disaster for the Wolfpack in the fourth quarter. And it looked like we were going to see a massive upset in the first day of the ACC era for SMU. Looked like, but they realized, oh, it's fourth quarter. We got to get rolling, boys.
Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, I don't know if you were Jackson Spaz or Preston Stone believers or not, but he made one out of me tonight. That throw he made for the go-ahead touchdown, that was a beautiful throw towards the sideline with pressure in his face.
A nice throw.
And he was able to deliver that only where his receiver could get it. He made a believer out of me.
Agreed. I mean, he was a winner tonight. But I'll tell you another guy, the guy who caught the game winner, RJ Maryland, the tight end. So that was huge right there. He had a huge night tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, because he was one of the most noble guys in that comeback. Brashad Smith made a tremendous touchdown. How about Anthony Booker Jr. for the first safety of the 2024 college football season? How about that, gentlemen?
Yeah. I saw that coming a mile away when they had that ball inside the one. I was like, man, they better do something little instead of running it up the gut. What do they do? Run it up the gut again. And yeah, from a shotgun, why? Keeping your own end, why do you run shotgun?
And we were hosting a watch party, and from Exploring Ben and Sam, the co-host of the Oregon Live was Spaz. He said if you have enough confidence in your quarterback, you run play action because they're expecting you to run the ball.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to do something to get it out of the end zone.
Well, it just seemed like Nevada towards the end did everything that wrong, everything that brought them to the dance. They forgot it. Like it didn't. Like they just forgot it.
Yeah, there was arguing on the sideline between some of the players I saw as well. Yeah, the Nevada quarterback was yelling at some of his players, and I just saw it coming.
Oof. Yeah, some of those guys looked a little too emotional tonight, and I'm going to tell you right now, I really hope they learn from this moment tonight. As do not get too emotional on the field because it will bite you in the rear like a chicken nugget.
Yes, it will.
Now, I will say, not to cut anybody off, but sometimes emotion can be a good thing. We've seen it in past where a coach will call out a player or players will start arguing, and then when they go back out on the field, it turns into great play. But if you're a young team or you're a team like Nevada, it just doesn't work in their favor sometimes because they're a young team and they're probably expected not even to be in this game to begin with.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's going to be interesting to see what goes on.
Did you guys watch any of the high school football games over the weekend?
Unfortunately, I did not catch some, but what was your takeaway from some of those games?
Achilles Smith Jr. Had a phenomenal day today. He threw 22 of 31 for 391 and 5 scores, and 12 of his receptions for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns went to one receiver.
Nice. That's huge.
Those are crazy numbers.
Sounds like I better watch a little more Achilles Smith Jr. because I'm impressed.
And if you look on your Twitter, you'll see Decorian Moore, another Oregon recruit, had one of the most spectacular plays last night for his school down there in Texas.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see what's going on in 2025 recruiting classes and 2026 recruiting classes for all college football. And I'm really hoping that we don't see any more Texas A&M recruiting classes where everybody's overhyping them, saying, "Oh, well, you're number one. You're automatically going to be all right." Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, ugh. I mean, I could vent about A&M all night, but this is not an A&M venting session. This is a
Now,
but if they fail against Notre Dame next week, then we can turn it into A&M venting session.
Oh, I would laugh.
Yep.
I want your guys' thoughts on something because I find this really interesting. Do you think that SMU winning this game close? Do you think people, they're already starting to overreact of, maybe they don't belong in a Power 4 conference or Power 5, however you like to phrase it. Do you think some of that's over dramatic off just one performance?
Well, it is week 0, so I mean, I believe Jackson said it earlier, it is only week 0. You have to take into account that this is the first live hitting that these guys are really seeing, and so you're gonna have those games that are gonna be some of those teams that aren't as well prepared, like Florida State. That was just they just got ran. Georgia Tech ran that ball down their throat the entire game. Every single possession, they just ball control. And if you can run the ball, doesn't matter how, but if you can run the ball on a defense, no matter how good that defense is, and you can control the clock, you give yourself a shot at winning a game.
And I will say, DJ Uyunglele, he's not a bad quarterback, but he's not great either. There was just throws in that game today where it just seemed like he was hesitant to throw it. I don't know why, but he was.
Yeah,
he was throwing balls short as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I ran up a total of how he was in the first half. He threw for 97 yards in the first half. And I believe in the second half, he threw for 96 yards. That's not good.
No, very, very weak at best.
Yeah.
Mediocre. Against an unranked defense.
It just seems to me, I'm not trying to make excuses for nobody because that's not a good thing to do. But it just seemed like Florida State just wasn't prepared at all today. Like they didn't want to be
Absolutely.
there. That they didn't care almost. And it's just like
How like they had that Dante from Clark's attitude where he's like, I'm not even supposed to be here today. Can't be like that.
Exactly. Yeah. They just looked out of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot be like that in a game. Like, it doesn't matter who your opponent is, if they're good, bad, ugly. They could be the worst team in the world. You cannot be like that because if you do,
mhm.
it will end you. It will hurt you badly. It will hurt the
Yeah.
team morale.
I said 2 weeks ago, I believe on our Sunday night show, if Haynes King can control the ball and control the offense, and they can run the ball, they can beat Florida State because Florida State lost a lot of defensive people last year, and that was
Mhm.
the big question mark, was how was their defense going to return this year?
Mhm. Well,
Because
and
we
I
all
know
knew
a
DJ
lot.
Ugalele was decent, but he wasn't, he wasn't that flash quarterback, and we knew that he could be controlled.
Well, and the thing that I want to bring up is a lot of people, not saying everybody, but quite a few thought Florida State, they were ranked number 10 in the country. So obviously they saw something in them, but they were hyping them up, kind of getting them revved up again. And it's kind of like, this didn't look like a top 10 team. This didn't even look like a top 15 team today. This looked like
No.
a team that might be fringe top 25. And I know it's crazy to say for a team that went undefeated and won the ACC, but they just looked out of sync, like you said, Spaz. They just didn't look like the Florida State that we saw last year, the way they were portraying them to be.
Well, and I was listening to the Voice of College Football, Mark Rogers show earlier, and he had a Florida State alum in there and was talking about how the culture is not the greatest down there right now.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Are
and
you talking
I'd
about
like to
the
say,
post-game show from today?
What's that?
Are you talking about the post-game show from today?
Yeah.
Yeah, from George Georgitis at the Renegade Report. He's a good guy.
now, Jackson, me and you have had some conversations about this, and you've kind of thrown it off like phony baloney. Those are just rumors, but we've seen reports come out that many people believed in the industry that Florida State has lost. Mike Norvell's lost that locker room, and you've kind of told me, Jackson, that that's baloney. That's just them trying to stir up the dust, so to speak, to get somebody talking. There could be some validity to that now after what we saw today.
Yeah.
Especially if we see their performance against Boston College be a disaster on Labor Day. If they're falling apart against Boston College, I don't see that team going to an ACC title game. Because the way they're at right now, they're closer to getting a drink at the Long Branch with Miss Kitty than they are getting national title hopes or going to the ACC title game. Because that team, it's bad. It's not looking
I think
good.
they might be an 8-4 team this year.
Mm-hmm.
You think they could be this year's USC?
Ooh.
Do what?
You think they could be this year's USC, where last year USC was in the top 10, but then they fell apart somehow in the regular season? Are you thinking that Florida State's similar to last year's USC?
100% absolutely. Because I believe it was ESPN that had said that every year for the last half a dozen years or even longer, a top 10 team at the beginning of the year has finished at or outside of the top 25 by the end of the year. And I think this year that could be Florida State.
Well, I mean, I
It,
didn't, because like I remember I commented in a reply to Logan Robinson at Knowles Game Day at I forget the website, but it was at Knowles Game Day where he posted the clip of Paul Feinbaum being on the First Take show where he said Florida State's disappointing. And I replied, I don't think Feinbaum watches enough Florida State, but I somebody replied to me saying, he does. I'm like, well, I was wrong. So because it's like I always like to make sure when I'm right about things, I let people know it. When I'm wrong about things, I let people know it. Well, I was dead wrong about Florida State, and I was like, they're fine. They're gonna be all right. They're pissed off. They're gonna use this as motivation, but no, they didn't. If anybody was motivated, it was Georgia Tech because last year we saw how they were in the Gasparilla Bowl. And for those that watch Georgia Tech, they kept it
Absolutely.
close with Georgia.
They
And
kept Georgia on the ropes for quite a long time in that game last year.
Oh yeah, and I know like on this week's episode, the Jacksonian with Alex Dono at Locked On Canes and Locked On ACC, I told him that I think I could see Georgia Tech ending that losing streak against Georgia in the decade of the 2020s. I don't think they're going to win against Georgia this year, but I could see him getting a win against Georgia in this decade. Because I mean, Brent Key's doing a tremendous job over there. Now, I don't know if it's too early to be comparing him to Bobby Dodd, Bobby Ross, or Paul Johnson. I mean, I know we can like compare him to like Paul Johnson, but I think we could wait like a few more years to be comparing him to Bobby Dodd. But what do you guys think?
Well, and I'm concerned with Georgia. I don't know if you guys watched Game Day today. The ESPN crew was basically picking either Georgia and Oregon or a combination of winning the whole thing, but yet Georgia's had a lot of offseason problems. I've heard rumors around Athens that that Kirby's kind of lost part of his control on that locker room, especially with all the off-season incidents they've had. Things could be different this year. I mean, Georgia could get upset if their players aren't motivated and if they're not, fully into it. Oh, we're Georgia. Nobody's going to beat us. And they could end up like a Florida State against Georgia Tech and going, what just happened?
Well, and here's the thing that could be interesting about that too, Spaz. Just imagine if somehow Clemson wins. That would flip the script completely. People would be looking at the ACC and be like, okay, maybe the ACC isn't as bad as we thought. Or Clemson's just that much better than everybody.
Yeah, if Clemson wins that game next week, I'm going to have to eat so much crow in Spaces because I have been grilling the Clemson guys. All of us have, we have a couple of Clemson guys in some of our regular spaces we're in, and we've been just grilling those boys over the Colts for the last month. And if they beat Georgia next week, man,
it's gonna cause chaos, not just within the Clemson and Georgia community and all of college football. Because then you got to reassess your picks for who wins the SEC, possibly who wins the Natty.
Yeah.
Well,
is that game at a neutral site?
Yes, it is at neutral site. We will see Georgia Clemson at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia for the Aflac Classic. Although, personally, I still
that's not a neutral site. Yeah, exactly.
Neutral site quotations.
Yeah.
Although Georgia and Clemson will be playing each other in future home and home, so that will be pretty awesome. I just hope that the SEC possibly, most likely going to 9 conference games doesn't derail that series. I mean, it already derailed the Ole Miss USC series, which I wanted to see so many Lane Kiffin storylines, but
Man,
well.
yeah, I wanted that game so bad.
And Paul Feinbaum, like, oh man, that Paul Feinbaum Lane Kiffin interview, that was a classic right there. And
yeah, and Lincoln Riley's trying to get out of the USC and Notre Dame tradition as well.
oh god, like I'm gonna be so mad if that game goes away. Like,
Does he just not want to play it anymore? What's the deal with that?
I think it's just smoke, or at least I hope it is.
I think Lincoln Riley's just nervous. He's already worried about he's got enough Big Ten juggernauts he's got to face. Doesn't want to face a juggernaut outside of his non-conference.
Okay.
He wants to play, North Carolina A&T or Louisiana Monroe.
He wants to load it up with cupcakes.
Yeah.
Well, if that
kind of like Nick Saban used to do every year.
If that USC Notre Dame series goes away, Austin, you thought you saw me blowing up about Tennessee, Texas A&M. That's a cakewalk compared to what I'll do if USC Notre Dame goes away.
Hey, it's gonna be nice to see Texas A&M again.
Yes,
this year.
Yes,
that's one of my favorite. That was always one of my favorite rivalries on Thanksgiving night. Usually.
Oh man, I'm excited about that game coming back. That's one of the things that really excites me about that game, but about the season. But before we talk about what excites us about the rest of 2024, I've got Georgia Tech's schedule pulled up, and we know they had that huge upset victory over Florida State in Ireland. Could we see a possible trap game against Georgia State? Are we seeing them let it go to their heads? And we got our friend Oilers fan forever in the chat. How you doing tonight, good buddy? Good to see you.
What's up,
Oilers? Go back to Canada, eh?
Hey, we love everybody around here. The more, the merrier. We don't care who you're.
Yes, we do.
Or where you're from.
Even though I don't watch hockey, I'll take his word for it on whatever he says about the Oilers.
Mr. Duggar's gonna whoop your butt Thursday.
Oh Lord. Jackson, I gotta say though, I'm looking at this schedule at Syracuse. You talk about where dreams go to die, right?
Mm-hmm.
That dome is haunted. I don't care what anybody says. It seems like when you go at Syracuse, you don't come out of that the same way you walked in. Because you remember, Jackson, Clemson went in there undefeated one year. They were the number 1 seed, I do believe. Or they were top 4, and they came out of there with a loss.
Yikes. They got a tough schedule, though, yeah. At Syracuse, at Louisville, at North Carolina, at Virginia Tech. Man, that's a brutal schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
but as they say, nothing worth having is easy. That's the way I look at it.
Well, because like if Georgia Tech lost today, that I wouldn't say they're out of bowl contention or nothing. But the fact that they won today really sets them up nice going forward. Because if they can avoid losing to Georgia State and survive Syracuse, surely goodness they could beat VMI at home, for heaven's sakes. If they can't beat them, we could be looking at Georgia Tech at Louisville. Could be a potential matchup that could decide who plays in Charlotte in late December, early January. For the ACC.
Yeah, because that would put them 4-0 or 5-0 going into Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Louisville is going to be the same as they were last year.
No. We are returning 90% of our defensive. Astor Gelati came back. Quincy Riley. I'm not as nervous about the defense. The offense, that kind of scares me. We're a whole new offense.
Yeah, you got an 8th-year quarterback.
Oh yes.
Well, and I'm looking at that October slate. That looks pretty rough because you gotta go to North Carolina. But then again, if you put it on the CW and North Carolina's a favorite, I think Georgia Tech wins that game. But
Yeah.
if Georgia Tech's a favorite against North Carolina and it's on CW, they're in trouble.
Look at this. The NCAA kind of did them a favor. They got a bye week before Miami, and then they got a bye week before NC State. How nice of the NCAA.
I think
Normally
it's
that
3
never
bye
happens.
weeks. That's insane.
Yeah. But a little something unusual, especially for some of the casual viewers. You're going to see Georgia Tech on Black Friday, but this is not the first time that it's not been featured on a Saturday. It has been played on Thanksgiving days numerous times, a few times in the 90s, and definitely around like the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. But I have to remember the years for sure. But I don't think I'll have to remember right now. But
now with this,
if that game was at Georgia Tech this year, and Georgia had made a couple of stumbles during the year, we might be looking at a different situation. But being that's being played at Georgia, I don't see anything happening unless Carson Beck and half their O-line's injured or something. Maybe.
Now I want to ask you all something. Do you think this performance tonight by Georgia Tech, do you think this was more them or just how bad Florida State might be?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, it obviously showed us how unprepared Florida State just really was.
Yeah.
And how hyped Georgia Tech was to have the honor to play in this game.
Well, I will say it was not a good day for Florida State, and I really hope it was just a bad day, and that's it. I hope for their sake it's not the first of many more bad days, but it's starting to feel like it's the first bad day of many bad days for 2024 for the Seminoles. And unfortunately, I'm not going to get my wish.
If Florida State goes 8-4, 7-5, does Mike Norvell get fired?
No.
No?
They would have to look pretty bad doing it.
Does he at least get hot seat mention?
Well, I mean, if he's getting sued and the players are like doing a bunch of God knows what off the field, then yeah.
I think it all depends on how they look going 8-4 or 7-5. Because if they look decent, they might let him off with the pass. But if he looks really bad and they go 8-4, then they might be starting to think, okay, what's going on here?
Right. I think see if he can get his locker room back.
Well, I think a lot of it too is he's going to have a couple more games this year to prove that his locker room has not lost, because they got Notre Dame and they got Clemson. Those are two big marquee games on their schedule. If he can split those and somehow manage to salvage what it was today, maybe Florida State might not be so upset after all.
Yeah.
Well, we got the rest of their schedule. So we mentioned that Boston College be on Labor Day. And that's why I've told people, do not be scoffing at Florida State, Boston College, because it's kind of like scoffing at Clemson Duke being on Labor Day. Because, I mean, we know what happens. And Austin, you and I have plenty of conversations about it, but it's like, where I scoffed about the Chiefs Raiders being on Christmas Day. But at the time, to be fair, it was when the Raiders had Josh McDaniels as head coach. So, but
Mhm.
again, no time for no day. So we look at the
Look at
rest
it.
schedule. We see Memphis, Cal, SMU, Clemson, Duke, Miami, North Carolina, Notre Dame, Charles Southern, and Florida.
See, here's the thing. I would think Memphis will be a good game, but it's in Tallahassee. So that kind of gives me like, Florida State should handle business at home. Now, if this was at Memphis or a neutral site, I could lean the other way.
There we go.
Yeah, they got, having to play Duke and Miami bad. Well, Duke's not going to be, I don't think they're going to be as good this year with Mike Elko leaving. But they have to play at Duke and at Miami and then come home to play North Carolina. I mean, they got quite a little gauntlet there with SMU, Clemson, Duke, Miami, and North Carolina. That's a tough little stretch right there.
And I can almost bet that at SMU game, that's probably going to be a sold out game, hostile environment. SMU might do like a blue or red out or something like that for that game.
Yep. And we all know how Clemson is.
Uh-huh.
I mean, yeah, it's at Doak Campbell, but Clemson looks to be. We're going to see how good Clemson really is next week. Everybody says they believe Clemson will keep it close. I don't have that much faith in Cade Klubnik. I just think he was
really?
sloppy last year, and I just don't think he has the knowledge, the football knowledge to go against juggernauts like Georgia and stuff. True. In a hostile environment. Yeah, it's just
I feel like with Cade, he's had some moments where he's shined. We saw it last year, but he's also had really bad moments, like you said, Spaz, where it's just like, what are you doing? Like you said, we'll find. Yeah, we'll find out a lot about them next week. But as it pertains to Florida State, I'm looking at their stretch of games at Miami, at Notre Dame, at Duke, like it shows there. This is not an easy schedule. We're going to find out what kind of resolve they have. And Mike Norvell's really lost the locker room.
I'm beginning to wonder if Florida can even beat Florida State, because, I mean, if Georgia Tech had a pretty good time messing around with Florida State today, I'm even wondering if Florida has a shot. Or
it's a rivalry game.
Oh, yeah.
It's a rivalry game. It's in Florida.
Yeah, well,
and as we all know,
this year it's in Doak Campbell.
Oh, it is at Florida State, so yeah.
Last year it was in Gainesville, and they kept it close, but no cigar against the Seminoles.
Well, as we all know,
that could be the game that could save or kill Billy Napier's coaching career if he's still there.
And as we all know, rivalry games, you just have to throw the record out the window.
Yeah.
Like Oregon State, Spaz, your all's game this year. A lot of people think Oregon State might be bad, but guess what? It could be a lot closer than the experts think.
Yeah, they're in shambles right now, though. Any other year, I would agree with that, but they're in just total shambles right now. They're completely rebuilding. It's a disaster down there right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is a rivalry, but that's one rivalry game that I don't think people normally would be like, oh, you never know. But this year, it's just like, yeah, that's a train wreck.
Yeah. Well, there is one record that we really can't be thrown out, and this is what Brent Key's got. He is 5-3 against ranked teams ever since his tenure at Georgia Tech started as an interim head coach. So we see that.
And he's now beaten what, 2 top 10s in a row?
No, actually, what we see are 2 17s in a row, but that's the first top 10 team he's beaten.
Oh, okay. I thought I saw something earlier about 2 or 3 top 10 wins.
But then again, he has done such a fantastic job, and I know I love what he's been doing, and I'm trying to just conceal myself, just not try to compare him to Bobby Dodd. He's not there yet, but I think I can go ahead and make that Paul Johnson comparison, especially if he could lead Georgia Tech to.
Yeah, that program was in complete shambles when he took over, and in 3 years, he's done quite a pretty good job of turning them back into a little bit of respectability. And today's win is definitely going to help.
Oh, yeah. And, we looked at the rest of their schedule, and, the November slate is tough, but maybe we can see them beat Georgia this year, possibly. That would be pretty cool, to be honest. See them in the losing streak against Georgia, and then if they're like an at-large team in the ACC, whether they win or lose the ACC title game, but then they're like watching Georgia in the SEC title game, winning the SEC again.
That would be hilarious.
Oh man, that would help Georgia Tech case tremendously. But I mean, it's fun to throw little playoff scenarios every now and again.
And Spaz, you make a great point. It's all about timing too. You got to be patient. You cannot rush these things. I know a lot of people want success quick and in a hurry, but sometimes you have to be patient. It takes time to build a program back up. Like not that long ago, we were in this situation too. When Bobby Petrino left us at a 2-10 mess, everything was going backwards, and then Scott Satterfield, I know a lot of people want to rag on him, but he came in and he helped fix our program, and now Jeff Brom is trying to take us back to the heights where we should. The Lamar Jackson, the Teddy Bridgewater era. So if you give a coach time and be patient, you'll see good results.
Yeah.
Oh, and don't forget about the first stint of the Bobby Petrino era from 2003 to 2006, especially the 2 years where Louisville ended the season ranked at 6th. 2004, where they only lost to Miami in 2004, won the Conference USA in their final year, and won a tight one against Boise State in the Liberty Bowl to end that season. And, of course, that magnificent 2006 season where they went 12-1 ended that season with a terrific Orange Bowl victory against the Wake Forest defense.
No, I give him all the credit in the world. Don't get me wrong, Jackson. He gave us Lamar Jackson, and I thank him for that. We have a Heisman winner, and we got a quarterback that's on the verge of winning a Super Bowl in the NFL. We owe Bobby Petrino the thanks for that. But the way he left us, you have to admit it was pretty bad.
Oh, yeah, that first stint, that was
yeah,
because it was. I'm always going to be here forever and ever.
Well, hey guys, I'm going to jump off. I just wanted to come say hi and chat a few. But
thank
you guys enjoy
and what you got going on at Ducks Live for those who don't know.
With me and Exploring with Ben, we got our show Tuesday night. This week we're gonna talk a little bit about the Idaho Vandals, as the ESPN prediction machine gives Oregon 99% chance of winning. So shouldn't be a lot to talk about this week, other than maybe some high school recruiting news on how some of our recruits looked over the past week, and preview the Idaho game, which I should be at. I'll know more Thursday. Just waiting on a couple of things to follow through. And Oregon is looking to have their first opening week sellout since 2015. So it could be a wild time in Eugene next Saturday against the Vandals.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Oregon bringing out their magic in 2024, but I just really hope that Desmond Howard didn't jinx you guys for your sake, because unfortunately I've got Oregon winning it all. So if the Jim Cramer of ESPN has jinxed my preseason pick, I'm not going to be happy.
Right on. Well, hey, you guys have a good night, and I'll see you guys probably tomorrow night on Boys College Football After Dark.
On the Voice of College Football Station.
Quack, quack,
Have a good night, guys.
Thanks for coming on. It was fun. We'll be seeing you tomorrow.
Yep. Have a good night, guys.
Man, that was a pretty cool call from old Spaz from Ducks Live. Check them out on Oregon Football and Voice of College Football. You're not going to want to miss the hot takes on the Donald Ducks.
Well, Jackson, we've had a pretty interesting week 0. And, before we get out of here, I want to know, Jackson, what were some takeaways from today? What did we learn? Or maybe what did we know already that we confirmed our suspicions?
Well, I think Florida State not doing so hot. That basically confirmed your suspicion. The culture is likely a little bit down. I'm just kind of being nice by saying a little bit, because it's worse than a little bit. So Florida State has been down, and I know that Georgia Tech had a huge day. That momentum carried on over from the Gasparilla Bowl against UCF and that last bit of last season. So it's going to be interesting to see what Georgia Tech can do for the rest of the year. But I'm looking forward to seeing what they bring to the table. I just hope they don't let this game go to their heads when they play Georgia State next Saturday on the ABC Network.
I will say, Jackson, one thing I learned is you never know what can happen in the world of college football. I learned that, whether you're an underdog or a favorite, you're never out of a game. Montana State was dead to done, down 31-14 in the third quarter, and they made a magnificent comeback. We learned that Florida State might regress a little bit this year. I'm not saying they're going to be like TCU and miss a bowl game. We're not going to go that crazy. But I think we learned a lot about them, and I think we most certainly learned a lot about Georgia Tech today. That maybe the time has come for Brent Key, and they're taking that next step.
Yeah. I'm loving the job he's doing in Atlanta. And I still can't believe that people talk down on Georgia Tech, on anything really. It's like, do you not even look at the college football history of Georgia Tech? I mean, I'm not saying they're like Alabama or Michigan or Ohio State, because they're not, but still, they're a solid football program. I mean, some people have made them out to be like Vanderbilt, and it drove me nuts.
Well, Jackson, just like Spaz just mentioned, Jeff Collins left it in a pretty bad shape. And Brent Key had to come in and basically salvage what was a bad Georgia Tech football team. And they were like, here, Brent Key, fix this. But now that he's gotten a couple full years under his belt and getting his players in and getting his culture installed, that they might be some contenders in the ACC for years to come.
Oh, yeah. Most certainly. But Austin, good buddy, what have you got going on for those who want to know a little more about you?
Well, if they want to know a little bit more about me, well, you can find me here at Sports Talk also 2002 or here on X. And you can find me here on Saturday nights with Jackson, as we'll be here every Saturday night throughout the college football season, talking about the biggest games, the biggest upsets. Heck, we'll even talk about some of the smaller games if people want to talk about that. We'll talk about Virginia and Pitt if you want. This is a free-flowing show. We'll talk about anything you want. And we also have picks, our other show where we do picks and analysis. We will pre-record that and get those out to you by Thursday, picking the games of the week, and you can hear all of our picks on who we think will win the game. We are not going to run from the grind, and you can, if we get it wrong, let us know. Let us have it. We're not afraid. If you think, if Jackson picks West Virginia over Penn State and you feel he's wrong and they lose, let him have it. Or if I pick Louisville to win the ACC and we don't, let me have it. It's all good. But that's where you can find me. But good buddy Jackson, I know you've got some exciting news to share. And where can people stalk you, as our good friend Exploring with Ben and Sam says?
Well, they can stalk me on at Jackson099600335 and on Instagram and Threads, where I run my mouth about what's going on here and there at Jackson Johnson 543-908 on Instagram and Threads. And it's also, of course, where I give my updates on the Jacksonian, who's coming on, who's not. And of course, they can find me on Jackson Johnson 979 on YouTube, where I have my latest episode with Alex Dono, the host of Locked On Canes and Locked On ACC, where we discuss quite a lot about the Miami Hurricanes, especially about the future of the Miami, Florida football rivalry, and where we go past 2025 for that, because it's just a home-and-home series, unfortunately. But you're not coming here to hear me have my little vacation session. So I do enough of that. But I do have very awesome news for all of you to share, especially for some of you that are so gracious enough to stay up this late. Starting on
before you go, Jackson, is it that you're gonna be interviewing Coach Nick Saban?
I'm not there yet, but I'll get there.
Oh, darn. Okay, go ahead.
But I am doing a new show on Alabama football at the Boys College Football and on SC football at the Boys College Football starting Monday afternoon at 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, where me and my good friend Johnny Burks will be co-hosting Crimson Tide Live. We bring you the latest news and notes on the Crimson Tide, and we bring you our take on the latest game of the Alabama football schedule. And let me tell you something, it'll be a wild ride.
Wait, so you're telling me, Jackson, Alabama has its own football show?
Yes, it does. Starting on Monday afternoon, 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on August 26th. Don't miss.
So you're telling me, Jackson, if I want the Alabama football news, I don't have to go snooping through Twitter? I could just go straight to the Voice of College Football and find it? Why didn't you tell me about this earlier? I would stop sneaking in people's DMs to get the news.
Oh, well, you can get everybody's DMs, and you can also, of course, tune in to Crimson Tide Live Monday night. It'll be fun. We welcome everybody. Alabama fans, Auburn fans, Tennessee fans, non-Alabama fans, especially Louisville fans, Indiana fans, everybody. Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon. We don't care who your team is. We want you to come in and tune in to Crimson Tide Live. Because I always say, the more the merrier.
It doesn't matter who you are, and I don't sneak in anybody's DMs. That was the joke. But now, if you're a Tennessee fan and you start talking about how hard your schedule is, Jackson's going to let you hear it. Just a point of reference.
Oh, man. Like, we're going to be, like, talking about this for years and years to come. Like, that's going to be – that has got to be up there with Stanford Cal, because I got to tell you, that is –
oh, my gosh.
I think they went to the ACC to torment you.
You had to bring that up. We were having such a cordial night, Jackson.
But yeah, tune in every Saturday night, especially late night, for the final whistle. Now we will figure out week 1, see if we're gonna move that to Monday night on account of the fact of week 1 being played on Labor Day. But week 2, we're not gonna have that kerfuffle for sure. But if you're a late night owl, come on into college football final whistle. And for that, I
Yes.
am Jackson Johnson. This is my good buddy Austin. And we wish you all a very good night. Sleep well, stay safe, stay away.
Jackson, hit the final whistle. The final word has been spoken.
Oh, yeah.
Go Cards!
Roll Tide.